What's up, guys? This is Andre, or Chokenator as you know me from my stream. I think I have an interesting piece of content for you guys tonight. I'm gonna go over my top 10 animated films with some honorable mentions. And just as sort of as a footnote, I don't think just because these are my top 10, it's a subjective thing. These are just the ones that have reached me and touched my heart, and I'm not saying these are necessarily the greatest animated films of all time. They're just my favorites, and I think I encourage you to make your own, or hit me with some of your own opinions if you disagree with me. But these are my favorites. So I'm gonna hit you with this right now. So let's go to my desktop here, and I brought up images of sort of little iconic moments in each of the films that I like. Let me put my webcam a little smaller too. So this is just an honorable mention. So I guess a number 13 of sorts. Lilo and Stitch. I love this one. I love the style in this, and I didn't really like it when it first came out. But as I grew up and I watched it again, I really appreciated the dynamic between Nani and Lilo. I thought Nani was the real hero. And I thought she's also a great looking character. Can't believe I'm talking about that right off the bat. Right off the bat, I got no chill. But yeah, I love Nani, and she actually made the film for me and kind of redeemed it for me. And I think the film is beautiful and it has a very unique style as opposed to all other Disney films. I don't want to spend too much time with these honorable mentions. Next one is Pom Poko. This is a Isao Takahata film, one of the older Ghibli films from 1994. It's about a bunch of raccoons, and I remember I downloaded a bunch of Ghibli films before, and I looked up on Bug. I'm like, what is this about? And I started playing it. And I'm like, I've never heard of this. I've never seen anything about this, but it's about a sort of a saga of a couple families of raccoons. They sort of grow together, and it's really heartwarming. And I think you guys should all watch it. I don't want to tell you too much about the story, but I think it's really good. Next one, Fantasia, the original Fantasia. I think this one in particular, The Sorcerer's Apprentice with Mickey Mouse and the Brooms, is probably one of the greatest animated shorts of all time, maybe the greatest, and it's just hilarious. But I think overall, it was a marvel of animation, the greatest animation for its time. I think this was made in the 40s or 50s, right when color animation came out in theaters, and I was just so blown away that music and animation together, it was just beautiful art. It's very artsy, definitely artsy. Probably the most artsy of Disney's films. And I'm not talking about Fantasia 2000, which was also great, but this one I used to watch on VHS as a kid all the time. But anyway, to get to my top 10 list here we go. We got number 10, Porco Rosso. Oh, I didn't actually bring up a image here. Let me pick one here. Let's pick this one. Let me get the image location here. I thought I prepared all these, but anyway, again, there's a female character that sort of made this movie for me. I thought Porco was very endearing for sure, but he's sort of this old, cynical man that turned into a pig, but from some kind of curse. They never really explained the magic in the movie, but I think that's also what's charming about it. I think Ghibli films, the older Ghibli films especially, are just very charming, and charming is the right word for them. And this sort of dynamic between this old pilot who sort of gets into dogfights, and people bet money on him to win dogfights, and he meets this engineer who can make the best possible little airplane named Fio. And I think Fio is really awesome, and she just stands out in the crowd. She's a wholesome girl. She's a mechanic's daughter, and she's talented, and she's just sort of a light in the darkness. And this is a world where there's war and fighting and dogfights, but the film is just so bright and colorful, and it's all about this sort of relationship there. Porco's been through a hard life, and she just kind of she just lightens the mood of everyone. And you see that especially in some of the later scenes in the film. I encourage everyone to watch it as well. My number 9 is Your Name, and here we have Mitsuha. Let me full screen this here, my browser here. Your Name, Mitsuha. I think this is another really, really charming film. I think the film starts out a little bit fan servicey, some opie scenes and stuff, but I think that's part of the charm, part of the humor. It's very innocent, because if I was a boy in a girl's body, not to spoil the plot or anything, there's a little switcheroo, but I think that doesn't really spoil the plot, because the plot itself, the way it plays out, is really amazing. A lot of subverting of expectations, kind of like some of what's his name, Makoto Shinkai's previous films. It kind of separates the films into different acts, and the way it plays out is really interesting. A very, very beautiful film. Obviously the highest grossing anime film of all time. And it just really surprised me overall. So I would recommend that for sure. Some of you might have already seen it. My number 8 is Rango, and this was sort of out of the blue for me. I think maybe part of the reason I liked it so much is because I really didn't expect it to be that good. I was like, okay, this is some animated film from an obscure studio that I've never seen make an animated film before, and it turned out I watched it in Blu-ray quality. It was one of the first films to be in Blu-ray, and I was like, man, this is beautiful. And then the story turned out to be really good, and you don't really get an old Wild Wild West vibe from a lot of animated films, and I think this film really pulled it off. Rango being this sort of sheriff gunman that's also a chameleon, and I think all the reptile and bird designs, those are not really designs you also see in animated films. Usually Disney goes with the dogs and cats and bears and stuff, but this one really went with reptiles and birds, and I thought it just had this really cool gritty vibe to an animated film. So that's my number 8. My number 7 here is Tangled. And a lot of you might think this is a cheesy pick, but if you felt this film the way I did, sometimes I wish I was a girl and watching this, just so I could really feel it fully. Because Flynn I couldn't relate with so much, but Rapunzel I could really relate with her. In the sense of just sort of being a dreamer and having this talent and sort of wanting to see the world. And I was young when I saw it. And they say you don't remember what someone does to you, but you remember how they make you feel. And I remember how this film made me feel. And it's the only film ever that made me feel like a girl. This scene in particular, with I See the Light, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to be swept off my feet right now by a charming prince, Like, I had never felt that as a man, as a grown man, but it really made me feel something. It made me feel like ultimate romance. And I think this iconic moment alone, again, spoilers aside, I guess this video is going to be pretty spoiler heavy. I'm trying my best, but I just want to say why I liked it so much is because of this scene. It was absolute just beauty, and I felt myself just riveted with emotion. And sometimes when I'm watching a film, especially an animated film, I like to look at the art, but sometimes you're so caught up in the moment of the scene that I can't even pay attention to what I'm looking at. Because I'm an animator, I like to look at I like to look at the color and see, oh, how did they execute this? How do they draw that? But a lot of times with a really great animated film, I'm so absorbed in the story the first time that I have to watch it a second time to actually see what's going on. And so I have seen Tangled maybe 3 or 4 times, and every time I'm just blown away by this scene. Of course, the film overall, great music, great everything. Plus, I'm a huge fan of Mandy Moore, so that's my number 7, I think. Yeah. My number 6, Grave of the Fireflies. And again, this is a video that made me feel. It gave me the feels for sure. I do not want to spoil this at all. I just want to say that it is a very emotional film. It's a World War II film. It's also by Isao Takahata. In a lot of ways, I find he is better than Hayao Miyazaki at certain things, and they use the same artists at Ghibli, to tell their stories. But the feel of his films are wildly different. They're very true to life. They're very normal. And I remember watching a little bit of a documentary on Isao Takahata, and it's like, why choose true to life, sort of mundane scenes, mundane stories that you don't really need to animate? And pretty much the idea is that why not animate them? If I can tell this story through animation, why not do it? If I can tell a story about, like Only Yesterday, for example, a girl dreaming about missing her rural roots in the city, why not make an animated film about it? Why use live actors when I can animate it? It's like, instead of asking why animate it, it's like, why not animate it? And I think this film really captured that. Like, I wouldn't have been able to attach to it as much in any other way, especially because these characters, animated, they're so cute looking, they're so innocent looking, and I think you can't really capture those feelings unless it's animated. So I just wanted to talk about that. My number 5 is Coco. So a lot of people surprised me because I knew nothing about the film when the trailers came out, and again, I don't want to spoil too much about it. And I asked my friend who watched it before me, I'm like, so how high would you rate this in your Pixar films? He's like, top 2 Pixar films for sure. And I was like, whoa, that's a big, those are some big words. And I didn't know if I would like it that much. I'm like, okay, it's about Mexicans. I knew it's about Dia de los Muertos. I knew there's a guitar in there. There might be some music. But I was absolutely blown away by this film. It just got better and better as the film went on. The music was incredible, very charming. if Tangled made me feel like a girl, Coco made me feel like a Mexican for sure, and it made me kind of want to be Mexican to sort of feel it even more and feel to be part of the family. But I really felt a part of the family when I watched Coco, and it really just spoke to me, especially some of the final scenes. And if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is one of my favorite scenes right here with the chancla. This really made me laugh. I'm like, okay, there's got to be, or it just made me so happy that there was a shout out to the chancla as the ultimate weapon of Mexican discipline. And here's the abuelita using it on this sort of stranger here, telling him to get away from her grandson. So that's really funny. There's just a lot happening in the film, a lot of great themes, a lot of great emotions, and obviously I would highly recommend this too. So that's my number 5. Number 4. So we're really getting to the good stuff here. The Iron Giant. So not only was this great, but I watched sort of the supplementary documentary from the DVD, which talked about Brad Bird as a filmmaker, and I realized, who is this Brad Bird guy? And he directed also The Incredibles and Ratatouille, and I think one more from Pixar, which I'm sort of ashamed to be forgetting. I'm not sure what else he directed there. I think he's also directing Incredibles 2. But anyway, he's a great filmmaker, and he really hits you with some stories that you very rarely see in animation too. And The Iron Giant is, it's amazing, the story behind it, because it flopped in theaters because it was marketed poorly. Apparently, like it's like some giant robot action film. It's a boy meeting a giant robot. This is. You see the old commercials for the Iron Giant. It's like, why would I want to watch this? And then I catch it on TV later, and I'm like, oh my god, that was actually amazing. That was incredible. Back when we had to watch movies with the whole commercials, right? And I was hooked. I was like, oh, I want to see what happens after the commercial. And the plot is so heartwarming and so tragic too. You really feel the sadness too at some of these moments. But it's obviously about, there's a lot of movies that are kind of like this, right? A boy goes into the wilderness, meets a monster, tames the monster, gets to know the monster. Everyone on the outside world sees it only as a monster, but the boy has to defend it. That story has happened before. How to Train Your Dragon. I've seen it in some anime, but anyway, this is, it tells the story perfectly, and I think you guys should really... check this out if you haven't. If you've seen it, you guys know what's up. You guys know. There's a lot of humor. The animation is absolutely one of a kind. One of the very last great 2D animated films in America, because American animation studios have mostly transitioned to 3D animation. So I think it might be the best American 2D animation of all time, in my opinion. And I don't think anything will surpass it for a long time, because that art form is kind of lost. As an American, I want to step it up for 2D animation personally, and I think this is a great gold standard for American animated film. So what's next? That was my number 4. My number 3 is Ratatouille. And what can I say about this film? First of all, I am a Francophile. I love everything about France. I love the French language. I know I'm an American, so if I went to Paris, they'd be like, ooh, Americans, but... I still love their culture. I love their food. I've been to France. I got to eat their food, their meal prep, their 3-course meals. Everything is perfectly portioned. I just want to talk about some of the meals I had in France for a second. I was in a 3-star hotel in Lourdes, right? 3 stars, right? It wasn't even a 4-star. And it was just perfect. It was the most perfect meal I had ever eaten. I can't say that they cook anything different, right? It was like an opening course with like a salad and some bread and some butter, some fish and like potatoes and rice for and veggies for your main course, and then some dessert. And I remember there were some like eclairs and some little cheesecake thingy. I don't remember what exactly I had, but everything was so perfectly portioned. And imagine, in Americans, we are over portioned, right? We eat way too much. But the portions in France is like just enough to barely make you almost full. So when you eat it, it's like, I want a little bit more, but I feel slightly satisfied. And it's like it makes you really want to come back and have some more. And it's just amazing. Everything's perfect. And when I saw this film, I was like, man, just the feeling, the scene with like, ego, right? And the whole scene about, try to visualize what the crunch is like when you combine these foods together. It was really magical, and the film made me feel the magic of animation, of music, of cooking, of culture, of family. Like there's so many themes in this, and there's so many things all compressed in this great film. And it's the conclusion is so good, and the conclusion really left a lasting feeling on me. That's why I think when it comes to best Pixar film, a lot of people have different opinions because every Pixar film, at least the good ones, and you guys know what the good ones are, I think they're pretty much equally good. And the ones that you think that the ones that you're gonna think are the best are the ones that touch you the most. And for me personally, I relate a lot with this rat character, Remy, and I thought his story was something that spoke to me. And I think maybe I'm a talented person like him. That's what I'd like to think, and it's just something I need a chance to awaken and an opportunity to grow in. And the ending message of the movie, with Ego's little monologues, really, really left a lasting impression on me for years, and it still leaves a lasting impression on me. So this is absolutely. I used to cite it as my number one favorite film of all time, but there are a couple more that are even greater to me in my heart. Again, in my heart, maybe not in yours, but in mine. So my number two, Tokyo Godfathers. Wonderful, wonderful film. So this is Satoshi Kon. Rest in peace, Satoshi Kon. A beautiful artist. Satoshi Kon loves in all of his films, he loves to blur the line between reality and fantasy. And in this, so they all turn out kind of weird, right? But this one was a lot more down to earth, and it's why I personally think it's his best one. I think this was also nominated for an Academy Award, which is a great honor for Satoshi Kon. So it's basically about these three people. The premise is really easy to understand. This is homeless man. It's this runaway girl, teenager, and it's this sort of trans, like a drag queen. And they all just end up homeless in the street together, and then they find a random baby. Like they find an abandoned baby, and it's like about it really gets you close. It really helps you relate to people on the fringe, and that's always a message that I've loved in humanity. I'm a Christian, so it's part of my faith, it's part of my religion to always look at people on the fringe as human beings. These people that are not accepted by society, and suddenly they are the heroes of the story. And what they're basically doing is they're trying to find a place for the child. And they don't know where the child came from, so they're trying to find a place for it, and they end up in a way sort of taking care of it and raising it themselves. So you guys should really check out that journey. That's sort of the premise. Hopefully that didn't give away, because it's a really, really interesting, unique experience to watch any of Satoshi Kon's films, and I would recommend all of them to you. Paprika, Perfect Blue, Millennium Actress, Paranoia Agent, all of them amazing. But this one is my favorite and is my number 2 animated film of all time. So we're gonna get to our number 1. Definitely close to my heart, Kiki's Delivery Service. And I don't know if any of you saw this coming. If you know me, you probably saw it coming. It's not even necessarily the most thematically deep film, but to me, it is the absolute epitome of the word charm. Just like with Porco Rosso, right? It is just charming. Everything is enchanting about this film. It's about a girl who's a witch, and she's trying to find her place in a new town, trying to find a job, and she doesn't think she has great witch powers. All she can really do is fly. She doesn't know any spells. She doesn't know how to do potions. She could just fly. And she just gets the idea, okay, I'm going to have a delivery service. Let's see how that goes. And again, I don't want to spoil too much more, but that's sort of the premise of the film. And to see how it plays out is just like really interesting things that are stressful in life. It's just, meeting a young boy for the first time, having some stresses with some mishaps in your job, getting sort of rerouted when you're doing a delivery. Like, these are some things that you don't see in animation. Animation usually wants this epic fight to happen, or this dark dragon to attack, or like this huge heroic battle, or maybe even with female protagonists, like in Disney, you have your fantasy princesses, and meeting your prince in shining armor or whatever. And like, all these stories are so tropey, they're kind of played out. And Kiki's Delivery Service is a story I have never seen anywhere else, but in this film. It's like, not only do I think it's a good film and it's unique, it's charming, but I think Kiki, Gigi, and a lot of the characters in the film, like Tombo, Ursula, Osono, the chef guy, the baker guy, like, they're these characters that are so unique, and I think it's one of the greatest achievements in character design. For animation in particular, like, these aren't fancy designs, right? But they're iconic, they're memorable, they're charming, and they're simple enough that you can animate them beautifully, because in animation, especially in 2D animation, you want simple character designs because you have to draw them thousands and thousands of times. And I think Kiki is such a memorable design, with the broom, with Gigi, with the bag, with the bow, even with the bloomers, the shoes, the little radio on her broom. Like everything about it is just memorable. And I think I remember I first watched the film when I was 10 or 11, and I was like, oh my gosh, this Kiki character is so cute. And even now, as an old man, I'm like, man, this character is so charming. Like with her dynamic with her daughter and everyone she's, I mean, with her father, the father-daughter relationship there, the mother-daughter, like everyone she meets, like it's such a charming character, and you really want to grow with her. You want to learn with her when you watch the film. I hope I didn't, spoil too much story points in any of these films. I know I did spoil some heavy ones, but I think it's these moments, the moments that they create, the emotional moments that they create for you, that really make them memorable and really make them special. So that's my list. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Um, I'm gonna do some more maybe lists in the future. Let me guys know if you have any more suggestions. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with anything I said, or let me know if you think I forgot anything, or let me know what your top 10 list is. Like, I want to hear what you think about animated film. Animated film is very broad topic. There's tons of types of stories, but it's the fact that they're animated that really I wanted to categorize them. And I think even Academy Awards have their own category for best animation feature, right? I can say a lot about the Academy Awards, but I'll save that for another video. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that top 10 list. Really a top 13 list, but top 10 with some honorable mentions. But anyway, that's it for tonight's video. Hope you guys enjoyed that, and please give me a follow, like, subscribe, follow my Twitch, follow my Twitter, whatever you want, guys. That's my little plug at the end. Have a good night. Peace. Later.